The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hiss, revealing a room that stretched beyond what human eyes could easily take in. Captain Jake Morrison stepped through first, his dress uniform crisp and perfect despite the long journey from Earth. Behind him walked his small team of diplomats and scientists, their faces calm but alert. The chamber was enormous, with curved walls that seemed to glow with their own light. 12 different sections held the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species. Each area was designed for the specific needs of its occupants. The Zephyrians sat on heated stone platforms, their scaled bodies catching the light like green metal. The Voltans floated in crystalline pods filled with gases that made them sparkle like living diamonds. The aquatic Nerians moved gracefully in large water tanks that offered perfect views of the proceedings. Jake had studied each species for months, learning their customs and languages. He knew the Cathara communicated through clicking sounds and chemical signals. He understood that the Draknari valued strength above all else, while the peaceful Solari preferred quiet meditation. Each race had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years before humans had even invented the wheel. Members of the esteemed Galactic Confederation, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced sound system. I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the planet Earth and the human species. We come before you today to request membership in your great alliance. A sound rippled through the chamber that Jake had not expected. Soft clicking noises came from the Cathara section. High-pitched tones emerged from the Voltan pods. Even the normally quiet Solari made gentle humming sounds. It took Jake a moment to realize what he was hearing. They were laughing at him. Council. Prime Zexthul of the Cathara rose from his platform, his insect-like features showing what might have been amusement. His voice came through the translation system with perfect clarity. Captain Morrison, your species has traveled far to reach us. We acknowledge your effort. However, we must ask what qualifications you believe humans possess for membership in our confederation. Jake straightened his shoulders. He had prepared for this question. Honored Council Prime, humanity has achieved faster-than-light travel within 50 years of our first spaceflight. We have explored 12 star systems and established peaceful contact with 3 other species. Our scientists have made advances in medical technology, energy production, and environmental restoration that we believe could benefit all members of the Confederation. 50 years, repeated Councillor Rifna of the Nerians, her voice bubbling through her water tank speakers. Most amusing. My species has traveled between stars for over 10,000 years. The Draknari have built an empire spanning 300 worlds. What could your infant civilization possibly offer us? Dr. Lisa Park, Jake's chief science officer, stepped forward slightly. If I may, Counselor, human innovation often comes from approaching problems differently. Our fusion drive technology, while newer than yours, is actually more fuel efficient than most Confederation vessels. Our medical advances have eliminated diseases that still affect some of your member species. A harsh, grinding sound came from the Draknari section. General Krextor's massive form shifted on his reinforced chair. You speak of medicine and efficiency like merchants. What of strength? What of military power? How many worlds have you conquered? How many enemies have you defeated? We prefer exploration to conquest, Jake replied carefully. Humanity has had conflicts, but we've learned that cooperation brings better results than war. This statement caused an even louder wave of sounds from around the chamber. The Zephyrians hissed in what was clearly mockery. The crystal beings in the Voltan pods created discordant tones that hurt human ears. Even the usually dignified Altari delegates made soft hooting sounds that their translators rendered as laughter. Cooperation, said Zexthul, his mandibles clicking rapidly. How wonderfully naive. Tell us, Captain Morrison, what is your species' greatest military achievement? Jake felt his jaw tighten slightly, but kept his voice level. We ended a global conflict 75 years ago and have maintained peace on our homeworld since then. We've built defensive fleets to protect our colonies, but we haven't needed to use them in combat. No combat experience, rumbled Krextor. No conquered territories. No defeated enemies. And you wish to sit among species that have shaped the galaxy for millennia? Engineer Danny Walsh, standing behind Jake, quietly activated his portable scanner and began recording the chamber's layout. He noticed several things that struck him as odd. The defensive systems visible through the transparent walls seemed overly complex. The energy signatures he was reading suggested most of the station's power went to maintaining comfortable environments for the different species, leaving less for actual defense than seemed wise. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Vailin of the Elegant Altari, humanity would benefit from a probationary period. We could offer you observer status. You could attend our meetings, learn from us, and in perhaps 50 or 100 years, we might reconsider your application for full membership. Observer status, Jake repeated slowly. What would that involve exactly? You would be permitted to watch our proceedings, explained Zexthul with what sounded like patience stretched thin. You could not vote on Confederation matters of course. You would not be entitled to trade agreements or mutual defense pacts. Think of it as an educational opportunity. Lisa Park's scanner beeped softly as she analyzed the various technologies visible throughout the chamber. Much of what she saw was impressive, but she noticed something interesting. For all their advanced materials and energy systems, the aliens seemed to follow very predictable patterns in their designs. Everything was efficient, logical, and exactly what her textbook said advanced civilizations should build. We appreciate the offer, Jake said after a long pause. However, humanity was hoping for full membership. We believe we can contribute significantly to the Confederation's goals and prosperity. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Zexthul's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Captain Morrison, your species has barely left its home system. You have no significant military, no vast territories, no ancient wisdom. You have achieved in 50 years what most of us accomplished in our first century of space travel. This is not membership material. This is a species that needs guidance and protection. The decision is unanimous, announced Counselor Riefna. Humanity is offered observer status within the Galactic Confederation. You may attend our monthly assemblies and learn from your betters. Perhaps in time, when your species has matured, we can discuss advancement. Jake looked around the chamber one more time. Every alien face, whether scaled, crystalline, or tentacled, showed the same expression. They saw humans as children playing dress-up, pretending to be adults. They were offering humanity a seat at the children's table while the grown-ups discussed important matters. We thank the Council for their time and consideration, Jake said formally. Humanity will need to discuss this offer with our government before making any commitments. As the human delegation prepared to leave, they could hear the aliens already. Moving on to other business. Trade disputes between the Zephyrians and Voltans. Border adjustments requested by the Draknari. The important work of species that had been running the galaxy since before humans had discovered fire. Walking back toward their ship, Danny Walsh quietly shared his scanner readings with Lisa Park. Both scientists noted the same things. Advanced. Technology built around very predictable principles. Defensive systems designed to counter known threats. And an overall sense that these species had grown comfortable with established ways of doing things. They think we're primitives, Lisa murmured as they boarded the shuttle back to their ship. Maybe, Jake replied, watching the enormous space station shrink behind them. But primitives who just got a very detailed look at exactly how they run things. None of them knew that within 3 weeks everything would change. The galaxy's established order was about to face a threat that their advanced, predictable technologies could not handle. And the species they had just dismissed as primitive, children, would prove to be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. 3 weeks had passed since the humiliating rejection at the Galactic Council. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the human starship Liberty, reading reports from Earth's exploration fleets. The sting of the aliens' laughter still echoed in his memory, but he had pushed those thoughts aside to focus on humanity's own expansion into space. The first warning came at 0347 hours, ship time. Lieutenant Sarah Bell rushed into the bridge where Jake was reviewing star charts. Captain, we're receiving massive distress signals from Confederation space. multiple systems under attack simultaneously. Jake moved quickly to the main display screen. The signals were coming in faster than the computers could process them. Worlds that had been peaceful for centuries were screaming for help across the galaxy. The messages were confused, desperate, and terrifying. Unknown vessels approaching from the galactic rim. Came one transmission from a Zephyrian colony world. They're not responding to any communications. Our defense fleets are moving to intercept. Another message followed seconds later from the same world. Defense fleet destroyed. Repeat, entire defense fleet destroyed in minutes. The attackers are using some kind of adaptive technology. Our weapons have no effect. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had never heard panic in alien voices before, but these transmissions carried pure terror. Get me Admiral Stone on priority. Channel, he ordered. Admiral Rick Stone's weathered face appeared on the screen from Earth's orbital command station. Behind him, Jake could see dozens of military personnel rushing between stations. Jake, I assume you're monitoring these signals. What's your assessment? Unknown, sir, but whatever's attacking the Confederation is cutting through their defenses like they don't exist. These are civilizations that have had thousands of years to perfect their military technology. I'm tracking the attack pattern, Stone replied, his fingers working over a tactical display. The attackers are moving in a coordinated sweep toward the Confederation's core worlds. At their current rate, they'll reach the capital system within 72 hours. More distress calls flooded in. The aquatic Nerians reported that their underwater cities were being drained and destroyed. The crystal-based Voltans watched in horror as their attackers somehow corrupted their energy-based life forms. Most disturbing of all, the proud Draknari military, which had conquered hundreds of worlds, was retreating on all fronts. Admiral? Came a new voice on the communication channel. Jake recognized it immediately. Council Prime Zexthul of the Kithara appeared on screen. His insect features twisted with desperation. The background behind him showed chaos, with other alien officials running in panic. Admiral Stone, Captain Morrison, I hope you can hear this transmission. The Galactic Confederation formally requests assistance from the human species. We are facing an enemy unlike anything we have encountered before. Jake saw Admiral Stone's expression harden. Go on, Council Prime. They call themselves the Devourers. We thought they were extinct, destroyed 1,000 years ago. But they have returned with technology that adapts to everything we use against them. Our energy weapons are turned back against us. Our shields are penetrated as if they don't exist. They learn from every battle and become stronger. The desperation in Zexthul's voice was clear. This was the same being who had mocked humanity 3 weeks earlier. Now he was begging for help from the species he had called primitive children. Our deep space sensors show they're mechanical in nature, Zexthul continued. Some kind of artificial intelligence spread across thousands of ships. They consume everything they encounter, adding it to their fleet. Entire star systems have gone dark. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see him weighing options. Humanity had only 37 ships capable of interstellar combat, compared to the Confederation's thousands. But those thousands were being destroyed faster than they could retreat. What exactly are you asking of us, Council Prime? Stone finally said. Any assistance your species can provide. We understand that your military is small, but perhaps your scientists have ideas. We haven't considered. We are willing to offer immediate full membership in the Confederation, with all benefits and voting rights. Jake almost laughed despite the situation. The same membership they had begged for was now being offered freely, but only because the galaxy was ending. We'll need detailed information about these Devourers, Stone said. Their technology, their tactics, everything you've learned. The next several hours brought a flood of intelligence data. The Devourers were indeed mechanical, but unlike any artificial intelligence the galaxy had seen, they existed as a collective consciousness spread across their entire fleet. When one ship learned something new, all ships instantly shared that knowledge. Dr. Lisa Park, now aboard the Liberty as Chief Science Officer, studied the data with growing fascination. Jake, look at this. Every time the Confederation tries a new weapon or tactic, the Devourers adapt within minutes. But they're adapting to very specific things. What do you mean? The Confederation's weapons are all energy-based: plasma cannons, particle beams, quantum disruptors. Their defenses use force fields, gravitational manipulation, and phase shifting. Very advanced, very sophisticated. Jake nodded. He had seen these technologies during his visit to the Galactic Council. And the Devourers have learned to counter all of it. Exactly. But Lisa, what if we don't fight them the way they expect? Before Jake could ask what she meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Captain," called Lieutenant Bell from the communication station, "we're receiving a direct transmission from the Confederation capital. It's Admiral Stone." Stone's image appeared on screen, but the background showed Earth's war room in full activity. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone. I'm ordering the entire human fleet to the Zerion system. The Confederation capital is under direct attack." "Sir," Jake said, "our 37 ships won't make much difference against a force that's destroying thousands of alien vessels." "Maybe not, Jake. But we're not going there to fight the way they expect us to fight. Dr. Park's preliminary analysis suggests these Devourers have adapted to counter-advanced military technology. They might not be prepared for something different." "What do you mean, sir?" "I mean we're going to fight them like humans, not like advanced aliens. Pack everything we've got: chemical explosives, kinetic weapons, nuclear warheads, and every piece of industrial equipment we can fit in our cargo holds." Jake felt a strange excitement building in his chest. Primitive weapons against advanced enemies? Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. We'll rendezvous with the Confederation fleet in 18 hours. Stone out. As the Liberty and the rest of humanity's small fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, Jake found himself thinking about the Galactic Council's mockery. They had laughed at humanity's primitive technology, crude weapons, and simple approaches to complex problems. Now those same aliens were fleeing in terror from an enemy that had learned to counter every advanced weapon in their arsenal, an enemy that had grown so sophisticated it could adapt to any civilized form of warfare. But the Devourers had never encountered anything like human warfare. They had never faced an enemy that would ram ships into each other, detonate nuclear bombs at point-blank range, or board enemy vessels with simple tools and raw determination. "Lisa," Jake said as they approached the battle zone, "what do we know about how these Devourers process information?" "They're logical, systematic. They analyze threats and develop counters based on predictable patterns." "Why?" Jake smiled grimly as he watched the first explosions appearing on their long-range sensors. The Confederation capital was under siege, and their advanced fleets were being systematically destroyed. Because humans have never been particularly logical or predictable, and I think it's time the galaxy learned why that might be a good thing. The Liberty dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zerion system. Ahead of them, thousands of strange dark ships were methodically destroying everything the Confederation could throw at them. But they had never faced anything like what was coming next. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the most effective weapon is the one nobody expects. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zerion system and immediately faced a sight that would haunt Jake Morrison for the rest of his life. Thousands of Confederation ships floated dead in space, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. The proud fleets that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were now nothing more than drifting scrap metal. The Devourer ships moved through the wreckage like massive black spiders, each one larger than 3 human vessels combined. Their surfaces seemed to shift and change as Jake watched, adapting their armor and weapons in real time. Red scanning beams swept across the battlefield, analyzing every piece of technology they encountered. "My God," whispered Dr. Lisa Park from her station. "They're not just destroying the ships, they're studying them, learning from them." Admiral Stone's voice crackled through the communication system from his flagship. "All human vessels maintain radio silence except for emergency channels. We're going to observe before we act." Jake watched as a group of surviving Zephyrian cruisers attempted a coordinated attack on the nearest Devourer ship. Their plasma cannons fired in perfect synchronization, creating a devastating barrage that should have destroyed any normal vessel. Instead, the Devourer ship's hull simply absorbed the energy and immediately began firing back with identical weapons. "They just copied Zephyrian plasma technology," reported Lieutenant Sarah Bell. In real time, the return fire is actually more powerful than the original. Commander Pete Rogers, captain of the stealth ship Ghost Rider, had been moving carefully through the outer edge of the battle zone. His voice came through on a secure channel. "Admiral, I'm getting close-range scans of the Devourer ships. Their adaptation process is incredible, but it follows patterns." "Explain," Stone ordered. "They encounter a new technology, analyze it for about 30 seconds, then develop a countermeasure. But here's the interesting part. They're only adapting to technologies they recognize as threats. My ship uses basic stealth coding and minimal electronic emissions. They're completely ignoring me." Jake felt a spark of hope. "Pete, what exactly are they ignoring?" "Anything that doesn't register as military technology. They scanned my hull, detected carbon fiber and titanium alloys, and dismissed us as unimportant. They're looking for energy weapons, quantum shields, and advanced propulsion systems." Dr. Lisa Park was frantically running calculations on her computer. "Jake, I think I understand what's happening. These Devourers have been fighting advanced civilizations for thousands of years. Their programming is designed to counter sophisticated military technology. But they've never encountered anything primitive enough to be outside their parameters," Jake realized. Admiral Stone's voice cut through their discussion. "All ships, prepare for Operation Throwback. We're going to show these machines what human warfare really looks like." The plan was insane by galactic standards, but it made perfect sense to human military thinking. Instead of engaging the Devourers with energy weapons they could adapt to, the human fleet would use kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and tactics that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for thousands of years. Captain Tony Martinez led the first wave in his fighter squadron. His ships were loaded not with advanced missiles but with simple nuclear warheads attached to basic guidance systems. "This is Hammer Squadron," he reported, beginning attack run. The Devourer ship's sensors detected the incoming fighters but couldn't identify the threat. The nuclear weapons showed up on their scans as primitive chemical reactions, far below their adaptation threshold. When the first warhead detonated against a Devourer hull, the explosion tore through armor that had been designed to deflect energy weapons, but had no specific defense against raw nuclear force. "Direct hit," Martinez reported. "The Devourer ship is showing significant damage. It's trying to adapt, but it doesn't know what to adapt to." Jake watched in amazement as more human fighters pressed their attacks. The Devourer's scanning beams swept frantically over the nuclear explosions, but their artificial intelligence couldn't categorize the threat quickly enough to develop effective countermeasures. Lieutenant Commander Kate Johnson had spent the HFY past hour converting the Liberty's industrial fabrication systems into weapons. "Jake, we're ready with the kinetic bombardment system." "Kinetic bombardment? We're going to throw rocks at them, very fast, very heavy rocks." The Liberty's fabricators had created hundreds of dense metal projectiles, each one accelerated to tremendous speed by magnetic launchers originally designed for launching supply pods. The Devourer ship's sensors detected the incoming projectiles as simple masses of metal, not recognizing them as weapons until they impacted with devastating force. "It's working," reported Dr. Park. "Their adaptive systems are designed for energy-based threats. They can't quickly develop defenses against pure kinetic impact." But the most shocking assault came from Sergeant Major Bill Hayes and his boarding teams. While the aliens watched in horror, human soldiers in basic spacesuits used simple cutting tools to breach Devourer hulls and fight their way inside. "Hayes, what's your status?" Jake asked over the communication channel. "We're inside, Captain. These things have no idea how to fight hand-to-hand combat. Their internal defenses are all designed to stop energy weapons and electronic warfare. They've got nothing to counter axes and plasma torches." The sound of metal being cut and machinery being smashed came through Hayes' microphone. "Their computer systems are incredibly advanced, but they're not physically hardened. A few swings with a crowbar and their main processors go down." Admiral Stone coordinated the chaos from his command ship. "All vessels press the attack. Focus on targets that are still adapting to our previous strikes. Don't give them time to develop countermeasures." The battle turned into something the galaxy had never seen before. Human ships rammed directly into Devourer vessels, their crews evacuating seconds before impact. Chemical explosives detonated in precise patterns that confused the enemy's sensors. Simple projectile weapons fired chunks of metal that punched through armor designed to deflect sophisticated energy attacks. Commander Rogers reported from his continuing reconnaissance. "Admiral, the Devourers are starting to retreat. Their adaptation systems are overloaded. They keep trying to develop counters for technologies they don't recognize as legitimate threats." Jake watched as a massive Devourer command ship attempted to escape. Its hull was scarred by explosions and impacts that its designers had never imagined possible. The ship's adaptive systems were cycling through defensive configurations so rapidly that its armor was actually weakening. This is it, Jake realized. They're not just retreating, they're breaking down. Their artificial intelligence can't handle fighting an enemy that doesn't follow the rules. Dr. Park was monitoring the electromagnetic signatures from the fleeing Devourer ships. Their collective consciousness is fragmenting. The individual ships are losing connection with each other because they can't agree on how to categorize our attacks. The final blow came when Captain Morrison himself led a ramming attack against the largest Devourer vessel. The Liberty, loaded with every explosive device the humans could find, accelerated directly toward the enemy command ship. "All hands abandon ship," Jake ordered as his crew evacuated to escape pods. "This is for everyone who said we were too primitive to matter." The Liberty struck the Devourer command ship at tremendous speed. The explosion that followed combined nuclear warheads, chemical explosives, and the ship's own fusion reactor in a blast that lit up half the solar system. The Devourer vessel, designed to adapt to any conceivable attack, simply disintegrated under forces its creators had never imagined anyone would be foolish enough to use. As the remaining Devourer ships fled into deep space, their collective consciousness shattered and confused, the survivors of the Galactic Confederation began to understand what they had witnessed. Humanity had saved the galaxy not through advanced technology or superior firepower, but through the simple willingness to fight dirty, think differently, and use weapons that were too primitive for a sophisticated enemy to understand. The species they had mocked as children had just taught the galaxy's oldest threat that sometimes the most effective weapon is the one nobody expects to work. The smoke had cleared from the battlefield, leaving behind twisted metal and the silence that follows great violence. Admiral Rick Stone stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching rescue ships search for survivors among the wreckage. The human fleet had lost 8 ships and nearly 300 crew members, but they had accomplished something the entire Galactic Confederation could not do with thousands of vessels. They had broken the Devourers. Captain Jake Morrison floated in a rescue pod, his uniform torn and his face blackened with smoke from the Liberty's final explosion. Through the small window he could see Confederation ships slowly emerging from where they had hidden behind moons and asteroids. The proud fleets that had ruled the galaxy were limping back to survey the damage, while human crews worked to save anyone still alive in the debris field. "Captain Morrison," came a familiar voice through the pod's communication system. Council Prime Zexthul appeared on the small screen, but he looked nothing like the arrogant leader who had mocked humanity weeks earlier. His insect features showed something Jake had never seen before in an alien face: shame. "We owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Jake was too tired to feel angry anymore. "We didn't do it for you, Council Prime. We did it because letting galaxy-eating machines run loose is bad for everyone." 3 days later, Jake found himself back in the great chamber where humanity had been rejected and humiliated. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. The alien representatives sat quietly in their sections, many showing visible signs of distress. The proud Dreknari military leaders kept their heads down. The elegant Altari spoke in whispers. Even the normally calm Solari seemed agitated. Admiral Stone had arrived with a small diplomatic team, but Jake noticed they were all military personnel. There were no scientists or trade negotiators this time. The message was clear. Humanity was here as equals, not as supplicants. "Admiral Stone, Captain Morrison," Zexthul began formally. "The Galactic Confederation wishes to offer its deepest apologies for our previous treatment of your species. We were wrong to judge humanity by standards that clearly do not apply to your unique capabilities. Stone's weathered face showed no expression. Go on. We offer immediate full membership in the Confederation, with all rights and privileges. Furthermore, we would like to propose a permanent seat for humanity on the ruling council, with authority over military strategy and defense planning. The chamber was silent except for the soft sounds of various alien life support systems. Jake could feel the weight of history in that moment. Humanity was being offered everything they had wanted and more than they had dared to ask for. But Admiral Stone's response surprised everyone in the room. "We'll consider your offer," he said simply. "But understand this. We're not interested in joining as your military contractors or your problem solvers. If humanity joins this confederation, it will be as equals with our own voice and our own methods." General Krextor of the Dreknari shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, after what we witnessed, no one questions human military capability. But surely, you understand that your methods are unusual." "Unusual?" Dr. Lisa Park spoke for the first time, standing beside Jake. "General, your species has conquered hundreds of worlds using the same predictable strategies for thousands of years. When faced with an enemy that could adapt to your methods, you were helpless. You call our approaches unusual, but they worked." Counselor Rifna of the Narians bubbled nervously in her tank. "Dr. Park, we mean no disrespect, but your tactics were so primitive. Ramming ships into each other using chemical explosives, fighting with hand tools. These methods haven't been used in civilized warfare for millennia." "That's exactly why they worked," Jake said, finding his voice again. "The Devourers had adapted to fight civilized warfare. They expected energy weapons, quantum shields, and predictable battle formations. They never imagined anyone would be crazy enough to ram a nuclear-armed ship directly into their command vessel." Commander Pete Rogers, who had survived his reconnaissance missions, added his own observations. The Devourer's artificial intelligence was sophisticated enough to counter any advanced technology, but it couldn't process threats that fell outside its parameters. To their sensors, our weapons looked too primitive to be dangerous. Admiral Stone stood and walked to the center of the chamber. "Members of the Confederation, 3 weeks ago you rejected humanity because we were too primitive, too young, too inexperienced. You laughed at our crude weapons and simple approaches to complex problems." The alien representatives looked uncomfortable as Stone continued. "But when your advanced civilizations faced extinction, it was our primitive methods that saved you. Your sophisticated technology made you predictable. Your thousands of years of experience made you inflexible. You had forgotten that sometimes the best solution is the simplest one." Zexathol clicked his mandibles nervously. "Admiral, what are you asking of us?" "I'm not asking anything. I'm explaining the conditions under which humanity might consider joining your confederation. First, we keep our own military command structure. Human forces will coordinate with yours, but we won't be absorbed into your standardized systems." Stone began counting on his fingers. "Second, humanity gets equal representation in all confederation decisions, not just military matters. Third, our colonies and trade routes remain under human control. And fourth, we reserve the right to use whatever methods we consider appropriate in future conflicts." The chamber erupted in shocked sounds from various alien species. The idea of giving equal voice to a species barely 50 years in space was unprecedented. "Admiral," protested Counselor Violin of the Altari, "surely you understand that experience matters in governing a galactic confederation. Your species is still learning about interstellar relations." Dr. Park stepped forward again. "Counselor, with respect, your experience almost got everyone killed. You've grown so comfortable with established ways of thinking that you couldn't adapt when faced with something new." Jake watched the alien faces around the chamber. Some showed anger, others confusion, but most showed something he recognized as fear. Not fear of humanity's weapons, but fear of change itself. "The truth is," Jake said quietly, "you need us more than we need you. Humanity can continue exploring and growing on our own. We've been doing it for 50 years without your help. But you've just learned that your galaxy isn't as safe as you thought. The next threat might not be mechanical intelligences. It might be something even stranger. Something your established methods can't handle. Admiral Stone nodded. We're offering you a partnership with a species that thinks differently, fights differently, and solves problems differently. That might be uncomfortable for civilizations used to predictable allies, but it's also your best insurance against unpredictable enemies. The voting took 6 hours. Jake spent the time walking through the station's observation decks, looking out at the stars and thinking about how much had changed. 3 weeks ago, he had stood in this same station as a rejected applicant. Now he was watching alien civilizations debate whether they were worthy of humanity's partnership. When the vote was announced, it was unanimous. The Galactic Confederation formally invited humanity to join as full members with expanded privileges, accepting all of Admiral Stone's conditions. But Jake noticed something in the aliens' expressions as they cast their votes. It wasn't the look of beings welcoming new friends. It was the look of survivors clinging to their rescuers, hoping that the strange, primitive, unpredictable humans would be willing to save them again when the next impossible threat appeared. The human delegation prepared to return to Earth. Zexthol approached Jake one final time. Captain Morrison, I hope you understand that our previous rejection was not personal. We simply didn't understand what humanity represented. Jake looked at the Council Prime for a long moment. You're right, you didn't understand. You saw our youth and inexperience as weaknesses. But sometimes being young means being willing to try things that older, wiser species would never consider. He paused at the chamber's entrance. The galaxy just learned that there's a difference between primitive and effective. Sometimes the species everyone underestimates is the one that saves them all. As the human ships departed for Earth, they left behind a galaxy forever changed. The established order had been shaken, and for the first time in millennia, the oldest civilizations were learning from the youngest. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest or diplomacy, but by proving that sometimes the most powerful weapon is the willingness to think outside everyone else's expectations.